Today we are going to talk about wiring three-phase panels. So I've gotten a lot of questions over the years about, people like watching how I do residential panels and how I keep everything clean and neat. Had a lot of people ask me how I do commercial panels, because commercial panels are a little bit different. A lot of times you'll have like stranded conductors. You have individual conductors coming through conduits, so you might have like weird numbers, or you don't just have like a nice piece of Romex that you can cut the insulation off and everything just stays pretty. But I just wanted to go through, kind of show you how I do my install, talk maybe a little bit about some of the codes that we use out in the field for how many conductors you can stick in conduit, and then just kind of show you my process.
So with commercial panels, most of the time you're going to be dealing with conduit. So that means you have a whole bunch of conductors stuffed into conduit coming in rather than, Romex that you're stripping off. So what that means is that you need to be filling conduit according to code. Chapter 9 in Annex C, we have all these tables here that it talks very specifically about what kind of conduit that you're running and how many conductors you can put in that conduit. This is assuming that all of your conductors are the same size. So if we have EMT, we're in C.1 in Chapter 9. We have a table here that lets us see all these different types of conductors and then all the conduit size, and then these give us the number of conductors that we can put in that conduit. It's already prefigured at a 40% value. So anytime we've got a conduit, let's say the conduit's this big, we can only fill that conduit up to 40% of its volume. We have to leave 60% free, open air. And that's for, if you're going to be pulling conductors out, pulling things in. It just makes it so you're not damaging anything. And also, if you've got a whole bunch of conductors together that are bundled, it leaves some free air around there to dissipate some heat once current's going through the conductors. So if we look in this table, we're using THHN for the conductors, and we're using number 12. So it actually says that we can use, for a 3/4 conduit, we can use 16 number 12s. That's why I like to use 3/4, because you can actually stick 16 conductors inside that conduit per code. So it gives you a lot of conductors you can put. You might have full houses or full boats, whatever you call them. But you might have like 3 hots and a neutral and a ground that you're running to one thing, and you're using the same conduit, and you got 3 more hots and a neutral and a ground that you're running. So you can stick a lot of conductors into one conduit. So just make sure that anytime you're pulling conductors into a conduit that you're using this table in Annex C, C.1 for EMT specifically. If you're not using EMT, you got PVC, whatever, all kinds of other conduits. They each have their own table that lets you know how many conductors you can put in. Now, if you're putting conductors of different sizes, like you got a number 3 and 3 number 6s or something like that, there's a little bit different method for doing that. I'm not going to get into that here, but make sure that you're not overstuffing your conduits. Now, you might notice with this panel that there's a whole bunch of space on the top of this panel. It's kind of unnatural. When I opened the panel, I was like, oh, holy crap. Like the top of the panel and the top of where the main lugs are, there's a massive space, and it's because you can actually put a main inside of this if you were to order a main separately. This is an MLO panel, which means main lug only. It doesn't have a main breaker. So this space allows you to put a 3-phase main in the top of that. We just don't have that here because I have a disconnect like literally behind me where I'm working on the panel. So I don't need a main in this panel.
All right, and then we've got multiple neutrals here with multiple hots. So what we have to do is, if we have multiple neutrals that are associated with multiple different hots, we have multiple circuits per code. And in 200.4, we have to group which conductors go with which neutrals, because right here, we have no way of knowing, right? I've got 3 neutrals coming out of this thing, and I got 3 hots. Which one goes with the red circuit? Which one goes with the blue? If you're having to like pull something out of the conduit or disconnect something or do, maintenance in the future, you need to know which ones go with which. So we have to have some way of grouping. You can use zip ties, you can use tape, or whatever you want as some kind of an approved means of identifying. In my case, I'm going to use zip ties because I have so many of them here. So for this one, I know this goes together with my red. Now, it's not even just when you have multiple neutrals and multiple hots. If you had like 2 full boats, you're gonna hear me call these full boats, full houses. It means the same thing. It means that you have 3 hots with a neutral. So you got a black, red, blue, and a neutral. They call that a full house or a full boat. That means you got full capacity, all 3 phases with a neutral. But I could have run like 3 sets of hots and 3 independent neutrals, so each neutral goes with a group of 3 hots. Even if that was the case, I'd have to take all 3 of the hots and their associated neutrals and group them together, so it lets me know which full boats are go with which neutrals. So in our case, we don't have that. So I'm just going to be putting which neutrals go with which hots. You might be like wondering, why are you putting the zip ties on instead of just putting tape? I like putting zip ties because zip ties I can actually slide and move. So if I don't like where they're at, I can actually slide these down and put them wherever I need them to be for my means of identification. Tape, you can't. You gotta like peel the tape off and take it off. So it's just my preference.
All right, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm gonna take care of my grounds. I always like to isolate all of the grounds, figure out where they're gonna go, and I stick them all the way in the back. I'm gonna put my neutrals in the middle of this side panel and run them all the way down the channel. I like to use these little posts when I zip tie because they're super sticky, they stick to the panel, and you can zip tie in 2 different directions, but it keeps everything nice and clean. And I'm running all my grounds in the back always. I'm gonna run my neutrals in the middle always, and any of my ungrounded hot conductors I'm gonna run up front.
I'm gonna leave a couple spots on the bottom just in case. Like I know I'm gonna have a 3-phase breaker down here that's gonna go to my energy monitor. So I know there's a 3-phase wiring harness that's going to go in here that needs to come up to a 3-phase breaker, which I also know it's going to have a neutral in it. So I at least need to have 1 spot down there, but I'm going to leave like 2 more spots. And then I'm going to go, starting at the bottom, I'll go all my neutrals up that way. And if you notice, like I'm going to the bottom for every single thing. The only reason that I do that is a lot of times people will come in and add things later. So I always like to just leave the tops of everything free and clear, so it's easier for the future for people to add stuff, and I just take the bottom slots furthest away. So to get things to look better and prettier and nicer, like even curves, even bends, that's what you're going for. So I just try to figure out like, where is this trying to naturally lay? And I'm just gonna let it lay there. And if it won't lay down, that means probably up higher somewhere. I need to either loosen something or move something around so that it naturally lays easier and it ends up coming out looking nicer. Next one, seems like it likes it right there. Stick this guy right there. So now you might be wondering, like, why did I put these 3-phase down here, leave a gap, and then I've got more up here? Something I like to do is just breaker separation. I usually start with lowest to highest of the same type, and then I might leave a gap. And like these are 3-phase breakers, so I have them by themselves, just easy to identify. Once the panel cover's on too, that's all you can see. I've got all my single pole 20s here, and I've got my 2 poles here. I could flip them on the other side to give more space for future expansion with these singles. It's just what I'm doing. So I like to keep everything separate. If I had a bunch of arc fault breakers, if this were a residential panel, I would keep all of my arc faults together and then all my dual functions together. That's just my method. That's the way that I like to do it. All right, so I've got black, red, blue, which means this whole bar down here, you can see it kind of like dips over. This is black. In the middle bar all the way down is my red, and blue is going to be this right-hand side. Now the blue only connects every 4th breaker. So like, the first one is black, the second one is red. That means both of these are red, both of these are black, both of these are blue, and then it keeps alternating. So you've got 1 full black, 1 full red, 1 full blue. So that means all my blacks are gonna have to go here, reds, blues, blacks, reds, blues, all the way down.
Another thing to consider is which conductors you're putting in which breakers. If you have a 3-phase multi-wire branch circuit, black, red, blue, you need to have a 3-pole breaker. So all of those common handle ties are shut off. When the circuit trips, they all trip together. This is if you are sharing a neutral. If you've got completely independent neutrals, you got a black with its own neutral, red with its own neutral, and blue with its own neutral, you can just have single pole breakers like this because they're each their own circuit. But if you're sharing a neutral and it's a multi-wire branch circuit, you have to make sure that all of the handle ties are put together. And so if one of them trips, all 3 of them trip. And the reference on that is going to be 210.4B for disconnecting means. Each multi-wire branch circuit shall be provided with a means that will simultaneously disconnect all ungrounded, hot, conductors at the point where the branch circuit originates. So make sure that you are utilizing those handle ties, that you don't create a dangerous situation on a shared neutral where one breaker trips but the other two don't. Now, some people might look at how I'm running these ungrounded conductors and be like, well, wait, when you put the panel cover on and you put a screw in, you're going to hit those conductors. Here's the thing. When you put a panel cover on, you can't use sharp screws. You need to use whatever screws come with, from the manufacturer, and every panel screw that's listed to be used with its panel have blunt fronts on them. So they don't have any sharp edges where that's going to be a problem. You can't use sharp screws anyways. You need to be using the screws that come with panels. And as an electrician in general, don't ever take a sharp screw like a drywall screw or something and drill into a panel. A lot of panels you're going to see people, rather than putting each one of the branch circuit conductors down the sides, they're going to put the feeders or the service entrance conductors down that side. And those are like big conductors. And so a lot of times you'll see people drill through them because they were stupid enough to put a sharp screw in because they lost one of the other screws. All right, so now that we have everything wired, I'm gonna install this Siemens Inhab energy monitor that they sent me.
So they have a whole Inhab series of products that's a way for you to monitor the usage of everything. And what sets them apart is that you can actually do three-phase stuff with their system, but it also gives you donuts so that you can monitor every single individual circuit that you'd like to, rather than having to just put donuts, on the main feeders coming into the panel, and then you're monitoring the usage of the panel. This gives you the deep dive so that you can go into every single one of your circuits if you'd like to.
Now, what I really like about the Inhab system is its versatility. So there's a whole bunch of different devices. There's like EV chargers that you can put on the system. There's smart plugs, thermostats, and it allows you monitoring of every single circuit. So while a lot of the energy monitors out there will only do the entire panel, theirs does every single circuit. And while it doesn't maybe look the prettiest to have all of this stuff in that panel, the control that it gives you in the app to be able to see all of your usage, you can see real-time information and historicals for all of the wattage, what the consumption of the system is costing you, but it also monitors down to voltage and current. So it gives you, as an electrician, the ability to see all of the analytics on this thing. Another thing is that it allows you through the app to set smart devices to automatically consume any excess solar energy. So if you have a solar system hooked up to this, it can monitor that. It can help with peak demand. So if you're trying to prioritize certain smart devices to automatically respond, you can do that through the app. And you can set any of the smart devices to automatically adjust to consumption if your rate changes throughout the day. So it gives you way more control of the system than just turning all your lights on and walking away. All right, so I think that's pretty much it. Commercial panels are actually a lot easier than residential panels. You don't have to worry about arc fault breakers, dual function. You might have some GFCI stuff in there, but it's a lot less complex. There's less jammed in and going on in a commercial panel, so it gives you a lot more flexibility and it's a little bit easier. So just make sure, one of the things I didn't do in this video, but I do when I'm out actually on a job site, is I label every single one of my circuits. So I take wire labels and I fix little labels so that every one of my circuits are numbered in the panel. And then out in the field, I do the same thing at the ends so that every single one of the receptacle switches, anything you open up, you know exactly what circuit number you're on. Make sure that you're sizing your conduits correctly for whatever kind of conductors you're putting in there. Make sure you're sizing your conductors correctly, especially the feeders feeding a panel. A lot of times engineered drawings are going to give you that information, whereas in residential, you kind of just have to figure it out for yourself. And make sure that you're always doing your best work. Like, try to impress yourself. Try to do better work today than you did last time. If you did things a certain way and you saw something on a video that you liked, try doing things. Try to evolve as an electrician. And by always trying to do your best work every day, you're going to be phenomenal someday. So be safe out there. I love you crazy people, and I'll see you in the next one.